going on, Jerome's? This was the most transformative offseason in franchise history. The Vikings moving on from Kirk Cousins and drafting J.J. McCarthy, number 10 overall, highest quarterback draft in team history. And you do have to salute Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi adofo-mensah, where they've been talking about the competitive rebuild. At a certain point, they had to start over at quarterback, and they did the damn thing this offseason. Ripped off the Band-Aid, eaten that dead cap from the void year cap hits coming home to roost, and the Vikings are set up very nicely as one of the best young teams in the league and have a bajillion dollars in cap space moving on forward. But long story longer, Kevin Seifert at ESPN, who is not Carl Gerberschmidt, did up a fantastic long-form piece about the Vikings' transition at quarterback this offseason. And there's a couple of tidbits that we want to get into, because the whole McCarthy thing has been covered nearly ad nauseum. Oh, blah, 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 all the trades, all the 6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12, whatever. But there's a couple of morsels that they're just like, mwah. That's right. So first off is when the Vikings' first season under Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell in 2022, They were potentially looking to add a undrafted free agent quarterback that could potentially work with and develop. A guy who would work well in a Kevin O'Connell West Coast play action, take what's there as well as throw over the middle of the field type offense. It's weird. The Vikings hiring of adofo-mensah and O'Connell in 2022 coincided with one of the worst franchise quarterback classes in recent draft history. The best quarterback has been the San Francisco 49ers' Brock Purdy, whom the Vikings had hoped to sign as a UDFA. Sources told ESPN in the fall. Instead, the 49ers drafted Purdy with the final pick of the draft to avoid a bidding war, which it's pretty common. If a team is completely dead set on a player as a UDFA, and if they have a 7th round pick, they'll just take him. No other member of the class is likely to start in 2024 with Kenny Pickett, small hand, smells like cabbage, Desmond Ridder, blah, 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 blah. So that would have been interesting. So Purdy was a guy in the 2022 draft, I remember, because it was just not a good quarterback class. We'd talk about Pickett, talk about Ridder, talking about Malik Willis, etc. But Purdy, I was okay with as like a late day 3 selection, a guy that wasn't overwhelming. And also, don't be revisionist history where just like, well, I had a mid-round grade on Brock Purdy. Baloney. Nonsense, man. But he did do some things at Iowa State. Him and Charlie Kohler had some really good chemistry from back in the day, and he landed in a great spot with the Niners, and he got the opportunity, and he seized it. So, props to him. But I mean, I wonder what would happen. So, I mean, Purdy probably would have been on the bench for at least 2 years and probably wouldn't have seen the field until this season, whereas in 2 years he's already been to a Super Bowl with San Francisco. But I don't know, like, I understand the Vikings 7th round pick, Nick Muse, I like, but I mean, they couldn't spend a 6th round pick. Like, they couldn't have spent the Vidarian Lowe pick on Brock Purdy. I don't know, man. I don't know. All right. Also, Asazi, come on, man. Come on. Another one is, of course, talk about how Kurt decided to Steve Miller Band. Took the money and ran to Atlanta. Again, y'all. But talk about how some Vikings wanted him back. Players young and old shared that sentiment of wanting Kirk Cousins back. Receiver Justin Jefferson said Cousins' return will be perfect. Right tackle Brian O'Neill wanted Cousins back with 1,000,000,000% certainty. Also, TJ Hawkinson on Bussin' with the Boys talked about how he still has a great friendship and great professional connection with Kirk Cousins as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of guys that wouldn't have minded Kirk back, even at 36, even coming off of an Achilles. It continued. No one in the building wanted Cousins back more than O'Connell, who had built a relationship with the quarterback based on positive feedback and honesty. And, I mean, that was one of the reasons why Kevin O'Connell wanted this job. He had worked with Kirk in Washington, and he got Cousins playing the best ball of his career. And 2022 was fantastic for Kirk, as well as 2023, Despite the record, which could be chalked up to a lot of things, hang on to the damn ball would be one of them, but Cousins was balling out, man. And I firmly state if Cousins had stayed healthy all season, the Vikings would have given the Lions a run for their money for the division. So it certainly would have been there, but it didn't happen. And This is interesting. Internally, the Vikings knew they couldn't make that commitment. Adofo-Mensah wanted what he refers to as an optionality. There was too much value in a rookie quarterback's contract with his low salary cap impact to overlap it with a long-term veteran deal. His final offer delivered at the NFL Combine at the end of February was a deal that fully guaranteed Cousins' 2024 salary and offered partial guarantees for 2025. Cousins, who would later say he wanted to avoid what amounted to a year-to-year contract, turned it down. So, the Vikings did make their last best offer. Kurt said no, and then he wandered off to Atlanta for his 4-year deal with $100 million in guaranteed money. So, and also there's guarantees in about 2.5 of the season. So that's basically where the Vikings were at, because they were in great position to still draft a first-round quarterback and potentially one of the deepest quarterback classes in NFL history. And then it just didn't jive with paying Kurt guaranteed money for multiple seasons, because you lose that competitive advantage. The whole point of it is if your starting quarterback is on his rookie deal, you can afford all of that cap space and you can spend that money elsewhere. And that's what the Vikings are indeed doing right now. Premium contracts for Jefferson, Darisaw, probably large players in free agency next year as well. And then go from there. And then the last one's a fun one, right? It would be a tough sell, and the Vikings were already considering their next steps. At the Combine, they checked with the Chargers on Justin Herbert's availability. It was the kind of call many NFL teams make to a team that has changed leadership. Adofo-Mensah has worked with new Chargers coach Jim Harbaugh. They're both in San Francisco together. I just said that. I was well aware of Harbaugh's preference for a run-based offensive scheme. The Chargers did not want to move Herbert, but the Vikings' interest was a sign for league observers about Cousins' looming availability. Now, it would have taken some cap gymnastics, but the Vikings could have made that work. And if the Chargers would have drafted J.J. McCarthy, reuniting him with Jim Harbaugh, it kind of would have been hilarious, man, because if you're going to run the ball, Justin Herbert is one of the quarterbacks where, some people say he's overrated because he hasn't gotten it done in the postseason as of yet. But in terms of traits and leadership, Justin Herbert is a dude. It could be Justin to Justin. So here you would have the rightful Diet Pepsi 2020 NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, and then the guy who won it. Absolute sham election there. But again, it would have been hilarious, and our guy Eli Corbett did a great a jersey swap with Herbert. But pie in the sky stuff. Harbaugh understands the importance of the quarterback position, even if he wants to run the football. But But it does speak to the behind the scenes stuff. Just checking in, just checking. And you wonder how these deals get done, where it's almost like your fantasy football league, where it's just like, what can you do for me? It's kind of funny how things work out. But, the whole thing with Kirk Cousins had some good times, had some good memories. But at the end of the day, the Vikings knew that they had to move on. And frankly, Kurt's injury could have been the motivation to move on, or gave Kwesi an opening to basically draw a line in the sand. Because if Kurt stays healthy and the Vikings win the division and or make the playoffs, I wouldn't be shocked if Kurt would have signed a similar deal with the Falcons, but here, the 4 years, $180 million with $110 million or $100 million guaranteed over 2.5 seasons. I almost would have forced Kwesi's hand in this spot. So it's weird how history sometimes works out. But your thoughts are thoughts. Take a look at Kevin Seifert, ESPN's long-form piece about the Vikings quarterback succession plan. It could have been Purdy good. Let us know your thoughts and our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.